Haha, welcome to SharePoint Dev Weekly. It is episode 44. Today is Tuesday, 18th of June. So typically we record this on Monday, but in this week for Tuesday due to availability reasons. This one will go live on 19th of June, 2019, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. Depends on the day. Anyway, so we are closing into the midsummer. So one of the biggest, actually, summer, the biggest family vacation in Finland is coming in 3 days, which are completely ignored by the rest of Europe, which is.
Well, isn't it exactly the same thing in Sweden? I believe there's
Sweden,
also
yes, Sweden and Finland, and I think Norway is kind of celebrating that. So Scandinavian area, but other than that,
yeah.
Why don't you celebrate? It's the most light up day in the year. What's the right term for that for English?
Yeah, I think that's the longest midsummer night, or is it
the longest day? Yeah. That's what it is. So
yeah, exactly.
That's what we're celebrating on that. So on Friday. So I will be off on Friday for that. So
good for you.
Yay! Yes. Anyway. So, what you been up to, Waldek? Anything interesting on your side?
Well, I mean, a lot. So I've been doing a lot of stuff, whether it's interesting or not. That is to decide up to you and the audience. But so on one hand, with the CLI, we're finishing up on the changes that we wanted to do for V2.
Yep.
We simplified the login. We reorganized some of the commands. We decided not to rename the arguments because, like, to be honest, nobody complained about them. So why force upon everybody a change that we think might be good, but then nobody else really feels annoyed by the things that we have done over time. So we decided to leave the things be. We wanted to change things that we say, okay, we want to reorganize things to make more sense. So that work is almost being done. As I've already announced, the current idea is that V2 will become the official pre-release version in beginning of July, and then August, we're going to release it as the version that from that point on will get all of the updates and upgrades and fixes. V1 will stay. If you use V1, you can keep using that forever. We are not taking that away, but it will not get any updates. Like, all of the work will go from that point on to V2.
Yeah.
On the Rancor front, we're doing some cool stuff with analysis of flows and power reps, and there are quite a few intricacies in there. Like, for example, being an admin, you can only see, let's say, the overview, which flows and power ups there are, but you cannot look into them.
Yeah.
But then, being an admin, you can make yourself co-owner, and then you could look into them. So, like, philosophy behind it is a bit awkward.
Yeah.
But yeah, I understand the reasons behind it, but from the governance point of view, it's a bit weird. Right, yeah. So it doesn't quite make.
I think obviously the themes, the flow comes from the perspective of empowering the actual end users, right? That's the angle where they're coming from, and that's why. Well, we will get more administrative operations there in the future, definitely. I'm pretty sure. So.
Yeah, and there was and another thing that I've done is over the last few weeks I've tried a few things with Flow. I wanted to see if I could automate some of the things that I do at work, and basically I arrived to the point where I realized that, I mean, maybe just me and maybe the rest of the world knew about that all along, but to me it appeared to like in the past we used to have the macros in Office in clients.
Yep.
We have the macros, like Flow is the macros for 365. Because you can basically really easily tie different things together, automate things, respond to things. Like, you can really easily do that, and then on the level of services and not a client application.
Yep.
So it's a really powerful thing. And then I've done some things like creating Microsoft to-dos from Slack, or even things like I live in OA, Outlook on the web. The way it works is that when you delete an email, it goes to deleted items, but it stays there until you sign out. But I don't, because I work at home. Like, there's no need for me to close that. So I just gather deleted emails over time, but they're never going away. So I created a flow basically that runs every day and cleans that out. But it's like the moment you get into the mindset of let me try to automate some things, like flow is a really cool things to play with.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes perfect sense, and it saves time and money, and that's the really great thing, because you can kind of calculate how much money you save due to the fact that you're saving time. So really great.
Absolutely. So what have you done with Flow so far?
Well, to be honest, with Flow, not too much. So Flow for me has been that we're both working on the provisioning stories and everything else. So the Flow is always the walk away or break the limits of site designs and site scripts by calling a flow. That's basically what I'm calling for. But then apparently, and again, I'm not from flow engineering, but apparently it seems to be that to be able to use that action in Flow Microsoft site scripts, you would need to have the license for all of the end users who are using the self-service site creation in SharePoint Online.
Wow.
That's apparently the situation right now. So, but I can't confirm that. But it's kind of weird. You could actually call also Logic App. That works as well, but that indeed has a different cost structure as well. So
yeah.
But that's my Flow expertise. So I haven't automated too much stuff on there. Should have more frequent look on what could be done there. Definitely.
Yeah. Cool.
But yeah, on my side, we've been working on, we're actually working on defining the future of the provisioning engines and provisioning services and all of that stuff. That's actually really interesting. So try to figure out what is the vision in future. And one of the actually discussion points on that one was actually kind of interesting, which is what is the right thing to do? What if you would have all the money and resources in the world? What is the right thing to do?
Ooh,
and then
where
start
do I start?
defining. And
where
then
do I start
defining the actual implications, what should be done? Because people actually get so stuck on, I can't do X and Y and Z because of blah, 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 blah. But it's like, well, what if we would unblock that? Yeah, but you can't. No, what if we could? So what is actually the right thing to do, rather than being kind of assuming that the how would I put it, the restrictions are what the restrictions are, because you can always bend restrictions, you can always bend the environmental variables, you can always fix the things which are limiting the factor. The question is, what is the right thing to do? And it's been kind of an interesting exercise. So.
And I guess there is also an interesting angle to it, where you can say, okay, so imagine that we had unlimited everything. We could do this. Okay, what if from the unlimited we only had the half, and you could only do the half of it? Like, which half would you do?
Yes.
And then you cut, and like, yeah, there you go. There's your plan.
Yes, it's a classic exercise of targeting what is important, but it is really doing all the money in the world. You have everything what you want to have, and then start. Okay, what if you have 50%? What if you have only 25% of that? What is the thing? Shit. But it's an interesting exercise.
What if you had to pay 25%? And you're like, no.
Yes. Yeah, that's true as well. And what is then the impact of that one in the overall costs? Yeah, interesting. So a lot of stuff happening, definitely. At the same time, I know that I'm heading on a summer vacation for 4 weeks, starting in 2 weeks, so 2.5 weeks. So it's kind of already mentally being like, no, I don't want to start anything complex because we don't have a time to finish that. Or maybe somebody else will finish that, but still. So I think right now it's time, after all of that crazy spring conference season, everything else, it's just slightly define the objectives and then making sure that I can have some time off and then get back to work in the start of August. So.
Refreshed and ready for another wave of events, right? Because there will be
exactly.
there will be ESPC, there will be some other things probably.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I'm heading to, so there's the ESPC, well, the Ignite, I think, is the first. And then there's the Thrive conference in Slovenia. I promise to go there this year again. So it's kind of almost like a family event as well. So really, really close people walking and meeting there. It is actually the speaker crew on that conference is just amazing as well. And then the European SharePoint conference, whatever it's called. It's Azure, Office, Microsoft 365, SharePoint conference.
It's the European Azure Office 365 or Microsoft 365 conference, yeah.
Anything in the cloud, Microsoft. But and that's
European Microsoft Cloud Conference. There you go, EMCC. You heard it here first.
Yeah, but anyway, that's in Prague. I think is that in early December.
December, yes, first week.
And Ignite is in early November. In Ignite, we will have a pre-day also for Microsoft 365 developer platform, so that's going to be interesting as well. Although the sessions have not been yet locked, so we'll see what those are. So, but plenty to do, and we'll start shipping the monthly releases of SharePoint Framework pretty soon. So
cool.
Right now it's starting from the 9th of July. So, which officially I would be actually on vacation, but I will work on that day. So, getting some docs out. So.
Woohoo! Perfect.
Yeah.
So there'll be the version 1.9, right?
1.9, yes, that is correct.
Excellent.
We're going to talk about more on the context of that on this week's Thursday community call, which is 20th of June. So kind of pinpointing more precisely what's there and what's not there. We were unable to get all of the things what we were planning to get there, but then there's some extra things as well. It's always a balance, these things. But now that we're heading to the monthly release cycle, we can actually just postpone stuff and see again within 2 weeks, are they ready to go in the next release? So they are not, okay, fine, let's postpone again or push them out on that release. Really good.
So I don't know off the top of my head the dates for the releases that we had in the past, but maybe you know, like what was the cadence up until now? Wasn't that roughly a month anyway?
No, not even close.
Nope. Okay, not even close. Wow. I mean, from that point of view, it feels like there were quite a few. Like there were some really, like we had 1.8, 8.1, 8.2, and these three were close to each other. But then 1.7, I don't recall when that one was.
I think 1.7 was. That's actually a good question. We would have those. Let me actually open up that because I will remember whether we can have a look on that. That is actually an interesting point. SP Dev Docs. Let me actually double.
Yeah, or we can just look at NPM.
The NPM is one way of looking at that, but we do actually mention the release cycles in the SP Dev Docs README, and 1.7 came out on December 18th. So,
wow. Yeah. So December and May, right? Because
December
1.8 was May.
1.8 was March.
March, or wow.
Yes. 1.82 was May.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So there was 1.8 in May. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Actually, to be fair, 1.7 was apparently November 8th, and then 1.71 was December 18th. And 1.6 was Ignite last year, so September 5th. Last year at this point, we just had released SPFX 1.5.
Wow. Okay, so a bit more than a month.
Much
anyway.
More than in the past. Yes, indeed. And to be able to know when the releases are happening, I think that's one of the key points here as well. And also, it helps in our internal processes of making sure that we have a more frequent cadence on. Okay, so this is not really. Let's deploy that on the following release, but we know when the following release is happening. I think that's highly beneficial. So. Higher quality, that's definitely the objective. So
yeah.
Anyway,
cool.
Let's actually jump on the articles and have a look on the things what has happened within the last week. If I can get my screen shared.
Because now you have this overpowerful, omnipotent machine that cannot really do anything.
Yes, which is having some weird challenges. So let's see how this goes. And screen sharing seems to be working. Woo-hoo.
Yes, I can see your screen. Perfect.
Cool. And CPU went 100. This is insane. No, I was trying to figure out what's happening with this machine. Anyway, so let me actually get you away from the screen as well.
Stop pushing me around.
Yes. Okay, anyway, yesterday, June 17th, we released an updated SharePoint Framework Developer Training Package. So this is June 2019 edition. Basically a refresh of the existing package which we have, and everything has been updated now to 1.8.2 version, and we will keep on evolving this on the quarterly basis. But the key point of this one is just to recap. We have nine modules, which for all of them we have a recorded video. And then we have presentation slides on the topic. We have hands-on lab for the module and demo materials. So this is basically training in a box. So everybody can either use it for self-learn, or then they can deliver the same training for other people, which is one way of approaching this as well.
Cool.
It has the themes, customizations, and all of that included there as well. So plenty of good stuff.
Nice.
What else? And this one from a community, well, not community side, from Mark Cashman. Mark is from our product marketing side. This is actually a really good article on what is SharePoint Framework from a non-developer perspective. So I think this was really good clarification. What is it and what does it actually mean? Where is it coming from? Why is it coming from? So not a super long clarification, but hey, a lot of valuable information in here. And the preciseness of our growth, 370, not 370, 373%.
Yes.
See?
Every percent matters.
Exactly. But really good article for those who are not necessarily super familiar what is SharePoint Framework and what does it actually mean, and in a kind of a business perspective, not just from a developer perspective as well. Now from Velin, really great article. Resizing SharePoint Online images by using Microsoft Graph APIs. So there's basically clarification on how could you use the Graph APIs on runtime to render the image using a certain size, so in an optimized way. And that's actually really cool. So how can we, what is the URLs and what's the structure, and how do we request those things in practice, and a few videos as well. So for both the and this actually works, and we can actually see it in here. No, we can't. Actually, that's a underscore API v2. So we're basically using the non-graph access, which means that if you're in the context of SharePoint, you can actually use the underscore API.v2 endpoint. But if you are outside of SharePoint access, you would have to use then the graph APIs to get again on the same functionality. So, which is basically visible in here. So,
awesome.
Anyway, good. This is from Julie Turner from the Symproxis Consulting. So basically, Stefan is a great UI designer, and he's always investigating or telling stories and teaching people how to use CSS variables and all of that stuff. And Julia is basically then building or explaining the story on how, or evolving the story and explaining the story on her own words in here. So that's the variable. And then we're using the variable in here, which, by the way, this one doesn't make that much sense. But if we scroll down, there we have the variable red, and we're using that one over there, and over, well, not in there actually, but in 2 times. But then you can actually adjust the setting in one location. Makes sense. That's the whole the variables. And then obviously slightly more complex thing, but it's basically then flipping and showing how to make these kind of things happen. So the CSS is really something that people don't necessarily follow up too much, but you can actually do amazing experiences with CSS adjustments. So you don't have to implement anything JavaScript to make this kind of things happen. It is just CSS. That's the whole.
Oh yeah, unless you have to work with things like IE11 or IE10.
Yeah, that's true. that is true. That's a limiting factor. Now, at the same time, if you're adding CSS entries to the page, you would have to be careful on how do you do that, because, well, in this case, these are actually CSS entries in the component. So these are basically in the component of the class, and you're targeting the CSS to the specific component. We just recently had a issue where one of the samples actually in the GitHub were showing how to register global CSS overrides.
Right.
And that actually blocked one new functionality. So customer was basically saying, well, this doesn't work. And then there was an investigation going on, and that was because one of the samples was registering a global style, which was basically then blocking the functionality. So,
but I guess I guess the ideal use for this was if, imagine on a modern page on the root scope, there were variables for the colors that comes with a theme. And then in everything that we build ourselves, we could just say primary foreground, primary background, secondary background. And so we could just refer to colors no matter what they are. Like, we don't care what they are, whether it's green or blue or red, but we just want to say, like, this is important, this is less important, this is the background. And then on the scope of a site, you can say you can apply a theme, and that theme will trickle down to everything else that is on the page. Right?
But that should be working, right? So
well, yes, but the approach that is available out of the box is not based on this approach. It's based on script, right? So because there are tokens that need to be replaced. And I guess maybe that has to do with the reason that weren't modern pages supported in IE 11?
They are. Yeah. IE 11
exactly.
is supported. Yes.
So that might be one of the reasons why the modern page cannot use the, let's say, this ability. Which then doesn't work in IE 11. So
which is then,
exactly.
Why are you supporting IE 11? Well, we're supporting that because it's one of the most widely used browsers still by enterprises across the world, unfortunately. And that shouldn't be the case. Please stop using IE 11. It's done. But hey.
So if you're creating plans for the new year after the holidays, please include the browser update in there.
But the problem really is that
not you, the audience.
I know
the audience.
Yes, that's fair. That is fair.
Yes.
The audience who's watching this video, stop using IE 11. Push a modern browser. Move to Edge Chromium. Well, that's not yet out, but do something. Don't use IE 11. Don't. And it might be that a lot of people are waiting for the Edge Chromium to be the one which is replacing. And yes, it's, by the way, awesome. I'm using that all the time. So this one is an Edge Chromium.
Yeah.
Now, moving on an article.
Yeah, it's also available on the Mac. I've installed it, tried it, but then I live in Firefox. So for me, it's like, yes, I tried it. I have my stamp, like I did it. It works on the Mac, but not using it.
Yeah. Now, this one is from James Callaghan, switching between modern SharePoint homepages using PnP PowerShell. Basically, it's just a reference article with a reading time of 3 minutes now. On how do you flip the welcome page or landing page of the site to a different ways. How do you modify that using PnP PowerShell? A few different functions, and here's a reusable function to replace stuff. So, which is using then the PnP PowerShell behind of the scenes. Really nice, good blog posts explaining how to make different scenarios to actually work. So,
cool.
Good. Let's get in here. This is from Sergey Sergeyev. Sergey has been actually on the weekly things quite often recently, so he's blogging a lot. But this one is really, really cool. So SP Formatter, Google Chrome extension which enhances your SharePoint column / formatting experience / view formatting experience. So basically, he has built a Google Chromium extension, which works on the Edge Chromium as well, which is then overlaying a more advanced editor with IntelliSense and a few other things when you're working on the view formatting or column formatting. Really cool stuff. This definitely should be something which community, or we in the SharePoint open source community, the PnP side of the house, start helping on Sergey on pushing this stuff, and we build it together as a community tooling potentially. So really cool stuff. And obviously the only downside is that requires that you're using a Chrome-based browser. So or Chromium, Edge Chromium or a Chrome.
Also, the question is, like, who is the audience for that, right? Because if it's devs, I think majority of devs are in Chrome anyway. So I don't think that is really an issue, right?
That is true. Absolutely. That is true. Anyway, super cool stuff. Have a look on that now. And on that one, actually, if you would be interested on Sergey, if you're interested on looping us in, ping me, and let's have a discussion together with Chris Kent and how we could be combining the efforts. I know that Chris Kent is looking into doing something similar as a web part or as a single app page. But then I think the true power would be that if we would be able to combine the people who are building similar stories, not competing between each other, rather combine their efforts. So a lot of interesting stuff here.
Well, and then also an interesting thing, right? Because I can imagine, I'm not sure if that's the case, but I think that Google Chrome extensions are built using JavaScript as well, right?
Yeah.
So in theory, you could even do it in a way that you will build the experience, and then you will expose it as a web part, single part, app, single page app part, Google Chrome extension, even VS Code extension, because in the end, you might want to include that in project. And there will be the same experience, but then obtaining the data from in 3 ways or 4 ways.
The VS Code one would be difficult because this overlays stuff on a live site when you're actually editing and seeing.
Gotcha.
But anyway, from a conceptually thinking, absolutely makes sense. One of the considerations here is also that the column formatting and the view formatting docs are actually the most viewed docs in the SharePoint Dev area. So there is a clear demand for this capability. So it would be great to have a more enhanced tooling available, advanced tooling. So the out-of-the-box tooling is evolving as well, but then having this kind of advanced tooling available as well. Moving on things, SPFX on Docker, use SPFX with Docker, and this is around creating where is it saying that?
What are you looking for?
The actual, is it using which language? There we go. So that use Windows. What about if we want to use Windows and build Windows-based image? SPFX a Windows container, and he's basically walking through that process and doing that. And my understanding is that there's something wrong with the Linux-based containers. What was it?
Yeah, so there are some issues specifically, I think, related to, if I'm not mistaken, Node SAS.
Okay.
The way it runs, there are some issues with that, which cause like different types of issues when you want to use the image with SPFX. And so I haven't given this a try yet. But it could be the case that in this case, you don't get these issues because Node SAS is binary that is being built on the OS. So maybe when it's built on Windows, it behaves differently than it does when it runs on Linux.
Yeah, that could be.
Right. So maybe there'll be. Yeah. And the cool thing here is that the image is built on Nano Core, which also isn't as big as typically a Windows install, which is gigs, right? So that might be a good alternative from that point of view. Although the interesting thing there is like what impact does Windows have here in this case on NPM? Because typically we see that if you run on non-Windows OS, NPM is like up to 3 times, I think, quicker than when it runs on Windows. So the question is what impact would it have? But it's definitely a great alternative, especially if it doesn't have the same issues as we currently have on Linux in Docker.
Yeah, absolutely. But good article. This was from Ramizbot.
Ramizbot.
Yes. Good. Moving on things from Alex. React templates using SPFX library components, part 1 basics. So basically walking through the different options with SharePoint Framework library components and building one and then reusing that related on React templates in this case. How far do we actually get in the first step? Not the super far, not with UX examples, but still getting started on things. Now, the library component is still in preview as part of 1.8.2. We're looking into going GA as 1.9 release of SharePoint Framework. So it's definitely something what people should be looking into.
Cool.
And that's, by the way, locked. Well, almost locked, but it definitely should be in 1.9. So.
Woo! Nice.
I can't promise anything because it might change things on the last day, but hey, it looks highly probable
if
that will be there.
Stars align the right way and nothing will change, there will be no big rock falling on the earth.
Yep.
we should have libraries in 1.9.
Correct. Walk through how to deploy SPF example web parts. So scrolling down in here, this is basically creating the web parts, and then how do we test them locally, and how do we run them in against the workbench. Really good basic articles as well. So this is good refresh on how things are actually working. Deploying that to the SharePoint, but not actually doing the ship option. So this one will host and run the code from the local host and enable CDN, what needs to be done, and all of that. So the basic clarification on how to get started on things. So really cool.
Yep. Nice.
Good recap. I think the problem in the many cases is that we tend to forget about the importance of getting started, to refresh videos and refresh articles, because it's like if you don't work within the getting started anymore, you forget about that there's a lot of people who are still getting started, and that guidance is super valuable. So thank you, Anthony, for that one. Definitely good stuff. And then the final article from this week, how to deploy, update, upgrade existing SPFX web part to Microsoft Teams from Siddharth Vakhasia, and nice walkthrough on the Microsoft Teams and how to create a Microsoft Teams tab built using SharePoint framework, which still sounds so weird. SharePoint tooling, but we need to rename SharePoint framework, definitely. But this is walking through the different options, what do you need to do, and how do you define a web part, not just to be a web part, but to define that to be also a Teams tab, which is an attribute. No code changes.
Exactly.
This is brilliant. So just to recap on that one. And sync to Teams options and then upgrade clarifications afterwards. But I think that's it for the article side of the house. So let me actually close the screen sharing. One thing what I wanted to, let's not do a competition this week. Well, one thing what I wanted to actually do is that can you see what does it say? Can you see that in the video?
Sharing is scary.
Okay, you can.
Sharing is scary.
Sharing is scary. Sharing is scary. It is actually scary as well, but we need to get over that.
No, it's not.
One thing actually we want to have feedback. So my suggestion, and we might actually get plenty of this, is that if there's a demand for these kind of background images with the Parker on them, let us know, thumbs up, and we'll definitely provide these to be available also on GitHub. Right now we have the Parker logos for example, for sticker creation available in GitHub, definitely already. But background images, if people want to have additional media.
Wallpapers, yes.
Images, wallpapers, thanks, exactly.
Yeah.
Let us know. We'll definitely share this as well.
So what are the odds that the PNP booth for Ignite will be actually branded with Parker?
Highly unlikely. So, we'll see. Well, we'll see. I doubt that that's going to happen, but hey, you never know. There's so many things right now happening related on alignments of the teams and everything else. So I can't promise that we'll have an explicit PMP booth even in Ignite. It might be that it's actually called SharePoint Framework booth, and which is SharePoint Dev booth, because PMP is SharePoint Dev. So SharePoint Dev is PMP. There's no difference.
Maybe there will be Office 365 Dev or Microsoft 365 Dev or whatever Dev.
Yeah, exactly. What does that mean? No.
Everything. It's everything. Yes. Everything. It's all encompassing, right?
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Cool. Any last words for this week? Anything what you want to recommend people to do within this week? Oh, one thing, reminder.
There
actually.
You go.
We will shut down the SharePoint Dev Weeklies for July because we are actually on a family vacations, both pretty much on the same time as well. And we will not actually do the public community calls as well. Just to recap on that one as well. And we actually did get some thumbs down on that one when I said it in the community calls, but it really comes down on the realities of life. If there is nobody who's hosting the call, we can't run the call.
Well, plus, I mean, maybe at some point, well, some people might not appreciate it, but on the other hand, like, at the end of the day, it's people, it's health, it's what's important in life.
Yeah.
Right. And there is time for vacation, there is time for work, and I guess sometimes on that we both shared the mentality that we turn it up to 11 and just go. But then there's also time to stop, and then you stop.
Take some time off and refresh, and then and we'll get to the episode 52, which would be the 1 year in a. Well, we'll definitely do one more. Do we do one more? Two more.
Two more. Yeah. 2
more. We'll get to episode 46, and that means that we've been doing 46 episodes every single week throughout the year. So, which is actually quite mind blowing. So,
yeah. And I think that so far we haven't missed a week, right?
Yeah, that is true. Every single week. So I think it's fair that if we take a few weeks off, and then we'll do a massive gathering of all of the articles in the first one in the August pinpoint.
There will be 4 weeks of articles, and there will be like extra long season opening. Yeah, there'll be season 2.
Yeah. Now we need to just figure out what is the cliffhanger in the season 1.
Season finale.
Yes. And we will, and more on next episode.
Yeah.
But we'll see. But any other things?
No, I guess for me that's still things going on. I'm really looking forward to finalizing all the work on Office 365 C Live V2, which I think we have now a PR open, which was done by Helen. So I think they will be merged in the coming days, and then basically we are almost at the place where we want to be with V2. So with that, that's almost around the corner, and other than that, it's just work as usual, trying to get as many cool things as we can, looking out for cool and interesting and intriguing things.
Yep, makes perfect sense. Absolutely. Cool. I think that's it for this one. So thank you everybody for watching. We'll come back with 2 more before we'll go for a quick summer break.
Season finale.
Season finale after 2. Now we're increasing the attention, and the yes, this is gonna get really exciting. Let's see if we can get some visitors for the last ones. So we'll see what happens. But thank you for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.